high school is often the centerpiece of a community. Events that range from plays to sports to concerts help give a city much of its identity. This has been true in North St. Paul for nearly 100 years. North High School has been leaving its mark on North St. Paul and surrounding areas since 1905 in the form of successful alumni and civic pride. North St. Paul area residents have felt strongly about their schools for more than 100 years, and throughout the history of the district, residents have been quick to get involved. It's this pride that has made North High School an excellent educational institution for nearly a century. The history of education in North St. Paul actually begins in 1880 when a frame schoolhouse was built on the northwest corner of what is now McKnight Road and 17th Avenue. This building was the first school within the borders of present-day North St. Paul. 7 years later, on August 23, 1887, a special meeting was held at the school. Residents were asked to approve the location for a new brick schoolhouse. By a 28-0 margin, voters authorized issuing $7,000 worth of bonds to construct the building on the northwest corner of Castle Avenue and Helen Street. St. Mark's Church is located on this site today. Students spent their first day of class in the new four-room school on December 15, 1887. 10 years later, population growth in the North St. Paul area made it necessary to expand the school by 2 rooms, in the opinion of school officials. However, many residents disagreed. Opposition centered on the cost and location of the improvements. Despite the disagreement, construction on the addition began in June of 1897. A second addition was built on the west side of the building in 1904, giving the school enough capacity to hold high school classes for the first time. Prior to that, students who wanted to go beyond 9th grade had to attend school in St. Paul. On June 5, 1906, the first graduates of North St. Paul Public School received their diplomas. The commencement ceremony was held at Fraternal Hall. The class of '06 was made up of 4 people: Marie Muller, who gave the valedictory address, Elsie Orth, Harold Smith, and Vera Ingalls. 1906 was also the year Olga Hansen started first grade at North St. Paul Public School.
And Mr. Erickson used to see us coming up, there used to be a big hill after you pass the train tracks, and we'd come up over that hill to go to school. And he'd see us. I think I was always on time, but so many kids, come straggling up over that hill, and it was past 9 o'clock. And he kept ringing that bell and ringing it and ringing it until the kid was safely in the school, so they wouldn't be marked tardy, see?
In 1907, 4 more seniors graduated from North St. Paul Public School. The next year, the senior class consisted of 8 students. One of those graduates was Clark Shaughnessy, the 1930s collegiate football coaching legend who developed the T formation. Olga Hansen was in 3rd grade in 1908. Her teacher was Myra Holmes.
Wonderful teacher. And she was as broad as a barn door, and she brought her own organ up to her room and sat on a stool, and I can always remember that big rump sitting on that stool, it took up the whole thing. But a good teacher, and she had us do a lot of singing. But one thing she taught us, and that I'll never forget, and that is spelling. And she wrote all the spelling words on the blackboard, and then she gave us a rubber ball, and we took the ball and bounced it against the board, and whatever word we hit, that was our word, and we had to spell and tell what it was. So this one boy came from a real German family, and I don't know if you know anything in German, but he hit the word A-I-S-L-E, Eil, but he looked at it and he said, Esel, and that's a German word for ass, a donkey. And of course, all the kids laughed until they fell off their seats. And she finally had to call order. But to him, that was the word for him. And he thought that's what it meant.
The State Inspector of Schools is responsible for construction of the just-closed North High School. A March 11, 1915 inspection of the public school turned up conditions that, in his opinion, made a new high school a necessity.
Dear Sir, I made the regular inspection trip to North St. Paul the 11th of this month. Will you advise your board for me at their next meeting that the need for a new high school building at North St. Paul is imperative? There seems to be no question that your board needs to take up at once the providing of suitable building space, and that the logical plan would be to devote the present building to grade purposes and erect an adequate high school building. Yours very truly, E.M. Phillips.
Original plans called for construction of the new North High School, junior high school building down the block, north of the St. Mark's location. In an unsigned letter to the editor of the Sentinel, a voter instead proposed locating the school on top of the hill north of the baseball park.
The advantages of this location are these. The building would then be up high where it could be seen. If the voters spent $40,000 on the best-looking building in town, it ought to be placed where it could be seen. Keep it out of a hole.
The suggestion must have been a good one because that's where the building was built after residents voted 114 to 27 to approve a $40,000 expenditure for the new school. North St. Paul founder Captain Henry Castle got out of his sickbed to lay the cornerstone of the new building on Memorial Day 1916. 300 other people came out for the ceremony. It was the last public appearance for Castle, who died 2 months later. Another colorful figure in the history of North High was Max Clausen. He delivered construction materials to the school site. As construction neared an end, he applied for and got the head custodian job at North, a position he held 51 years until retiring in 1967.
Max was the greatest custodian I've ever known in my life. That school was like his home. He took care of it just like it was his home. I can see Max running around picking up waste paper baskets all day long, you know, standing at the door telling the kids to wipe their feet off, you know, clean your shoes.
He put in many, many hours, more than his 8-hour day, every day, forever. Even weekends, you know, we didn't have to worry about overtime with Max. We'd offer him and he wouldn't even take overtime pay. He said, I live right across the street, I can come over and open the door.
I know my mother used to, be so upset. She says, Dad, you live at that school. And that's true, because anything that went wrong, he was there to fix it.
I remember being a first grader and being sent down to Max's room to get more paper. We needed paper for drawing. And upon arriving there, Max asked me who the teacher was, and I informed him of her name. And he looked at his chart and said, she's already used up her supply for this year. You go back and tell her that she gets no more paper for the rest of the year.
Upon his death, the old school bell from the original North St. Paul Public School was dedicated to Max and put in front of the new North. The bell now welcomes all who come to the 1997 North High. It was more than the facilities that were being improved in 1916. Several new courses were added to the North High curriculum. They were American government, general science, and home training. Latin and German were the foreign languages offered. The superintendent of schools personally approved each student's choice of courses. The new North High opened to students on Monday, December 14, 1916. However, since the interior work wasn't finished, the formal public dedication ceremony was delayed until May 3, 1917. During these early years, students started the day by singing.
We all gathered in the assembly room, and opened up our songbooks, and we had a real good song fest. And it was wonderful, just wonderful. We sang different, I don't know how many songs, and then we dispersed, go to our classes and do things. And you know, everybody was just happy, and it was a wonderful way to start.
The graduation ceremonies during the early years of North were quite different from what today's graduates go through.
We had to put on skits when we graduated to show what we had done or learned. And I happened to be selected as the teacher. And my mother was so proud of me. And she wanted me to go to college. And I said, no, I said, I can do a little shorthand and typing, and I want to get out and earn some money. And that's what I chose.
And we all provided our own dresses, you know. You didn't have a robe or anything like that. And we sat up on the stage. They had a valedictorian and a salutatorian. And I got a medal for being the highest grade in English class.
The new North served residents of the community in fine style for several years. However, the population of North St. Paul was growing. But it was the 1924 condemnation of the grade school and the transfer of those students to the high school building that really made the quarters tight. The student-teacher ratio at North was 35-1, the highest in the state. It would be more than 4 years before school officials could relieve the overcrowding. Doris Sweet was a fixture at North High for more than 43 years. She began her storied career as a social studies teacher and dean of girls in 1927. Doris spent the 1943-44 school year as principal and became North's first counselor in 1946.
Doris Sweet was one of the most delightful people that the good Lord ever put on this earth. If you look in the dictionary under the word sweet, there should be a picture of her. And I'm certainly not alone in my sentiments for that. She was a counselor that truly, truly cared.
No matter who you are or what you come from, she treated everyone equal. That's pretty hard to do. You know, no matter who you were, she worked with you.
She and Ann Fesenmeyer sent me a letter. I was hired late in August, and the letter said, if there's anything we can do to help you, please. And when I came here, they were the first people who greeted me, and that was Doris. She was just a kind and generous person.
Doris Sweet ended her long and distinguished career in 1972. Upon her death in 1993, she left money to North to start a scholarship. A citizens committee formed in February 1928 determined it would be too costly to remodel the elementary building. After considering construction of portable buildings, the school board decided to ask the voters to pass a $48,000 bond issue. On May 29th, residents approved the addition of a first-floor gym and auditorium and 6 classrooms on the second floor for elementary students. As the 30s began, the Great Depression was on the minds of most people around the country and in Minnesota. But in some ways, school was an escape from the harsh times. In 1931, North High became a charter member of the National Honor Society. Student Council was also started that year, and I.V. Johnson was hired as teacher and principal.
I taught chemistry and physics in North St. Paul for 11 years, as well as being the high school principal. I also directed the vocal stuff at North St. Paul when I first got there. Until Ethel Pauline came along, and she was a musician, and so she took over the music from me, which was a little relief, you know.
North's yearbook, the Polaris, made its debut in 1932. Also that year, an unsuccessful attempt at serving hot lunch was made. In January 1933, Miss Milky's home ec class again began offering hot lunch for 2 cents a plate, this time with better results. Elementary students were taking part in a posture contest. Miss Joesting presented awards to 2 students in each grade, one award for the best posture and another for most improved posture. Later that year, the Depression was felt firsthand by North staff. A tight budget forced the district to cut teachers' salaries 15%, even though North's salary schedule was lower than 20 of 22 Minnesota schools with similar enrollments. Meanwhile, North Public School was growing more crowded. In December of 1933, despite the troubled economy, North St. Paul voters overwhelmingly approved a $45,000 bond issue to ease overcrowding at the school. The federal government contributed another $17,000 in grants to the project to create jobs. Perhaps one of the reasons the vote was successful was the opportunity for local workers to get steady employment on the school project. The addition called for 8 elementary classrooms, a large lunch and play area in the basement, a new boiler room, and a 3rd floor that would remain unfinished until the space was needed. A construction worker suffered broken bones when a part of the basement excavation collapsed. Also early that month, the Public Works Administration rejected on a technicality the contracts the school district had earlier approved. As a result, the entire project had to be rebid. Meanwhile, labor troubles threatened to delay construction even further. Union carpenters from St. Paul and some contractors tried to keep 27 local carpenters who were promised work off the project. Public Works Administration rules during the Depression allowed the general contractor to hire local, non-union workers for carpentry projects. The dispute was resolved through an agreement that made the local non-union workers temporary union employees. School opened in September 1934 with the grade school addition uncompleted, so 791 kindergarten through 12th grade students started the school year crammed into the junior-senior high wing. Classes had to be held on the stage and in the gym. Dedication of the new elementary school wing was held on December 7, 1934. The unfinished 3rd floor remained so until 1948. North's student newspaper, the Northern Highlights, began publication in fall 1937. As the 1930s gave way to the 40s, national events were again being felt in North St. Paul. This time it was the United States' involvement in World War II. The still unfinished 3rd floor of North was used as part of the war effort.
The Red Cross had a bandage making group up here at the high school, up at the old 1948 edition. And these ladies would come up and make bandages for the war effort. And at the same time, there was welders in the building here in the same edition, upstairs, that were taking welding courses and learning to be welders so they could go out to the West Coast and work on ships and that type of thing.
For the first time ever, the prom was held off campus in 1942. It was moved from the school gym to Hillcrest because of the war. North High students and staff made other contributions to the war effort. Every senior boy was required to take a health and physical fitness class to prepare them for the military. A number of boys and several teachers left school to serve in the armed forces. Principal I.V. Johnson resigned in 1942 to join the Navy. Some North High students made the ultimate sacrifice for their country in World War II.
Dick and Joe and I were friends, and I'd carry papers. They'd help me, and you know, we got quite close. Played ball with Joe, a little basketball with Joe, and Dick, very good friend. Went doubled at proms. And one time we were together, someone pulled out a dollar bill and divided it in 3, for each of us to have 1/3. I mean, after the war, we're going to put that together and go out and I suppose, get a beer. Dick was killed in the Battle of the Bulge. Joe, Navy, came back, and we were together on occasion, not often, but on occasion. We have 5-year reunions. And a number of years ago, goodness, maybe 25 years ago he died. But he and I never talked about that dollar.
The war interrupted production of the Polaris, the North Yearbook, in 1943 and 44.
There was savings on everything. I mean, you just didn't spend any extra money any place. Supplies were short, and paper was among those things that were short supply nationwide. So we just didn't have our annuals that year, those 2 years. Class of 1943, when they had their 50th reunion, they decided because they did not have an annual, they were going to produce one. And so the class of 44, my class, we did the same thing for the same reasons.
During these years, it was common for teachers to live with a family in the community in which they taught. Max and Eva Clausen opened their doors to a number of North teachers.
There were two of them that stayed there for 2 years, lived there, you know, with them and boarded. Then she had many that boarded there. Oh, there must have been at least 10 teachers that boarded there. They came for the evening meal because my mother was a super cook.
Olga Hansen-Bowman remembers the one teacher who lived with her family.
Talking about Mr. Milo, we had just built a big English colonial home on 18th Avenue. And he called me, he said, Mrs. Bowman, I know you got a big house. He said, do you have room for a teacher? And I said, well, I wasn't thinking about it, but he said, well, this is a young lady. She comes from Minneapolis, and she's Scandinavian, and she won't take the job unless she has a real nice place to live who'll take her in as a boarder too. So I said, well, yes, I could manage a bedroom for her. So up comes this little Swede, Helen Peterson, and she became our family. We took her in. She called us Ma and Pa. They used to give their sign their contract, and she'd say to us, will you take me for another year? She says, otherwise I'm not going to sign this. And then I think she stayed with us for 3 years.
The North St. Paul School District named a new superintendent in 1947. Walter Whitney Richardson led the district for 23 years, longer than any other superintendent. His tenure spanned the biggest period of change for the district, including the times of rapid growth in the 50s and 60s.
Now there was a man. He was intellectual, he could be persuaded, and he genuinely cared for kids, and he cared about staff.
He was a wonderful man to work for, just a tremendous guy.
We held a contest, and the winning poem was a poem, and it was God is Dead. And the boy who wrote it was a boy named Hendrickson. And anyway, he gave me a call, and he says, now, Marlene, about this poem. And I said, oh, you read about it? Well, I have, since I've gotten calls from local priests and ministers. Well, we made the pulpits, you know. And actually, the poem was not about God is dead so much as it was about human values and so on. And we chatted for a bit, and he said, I can support that. And we never heard another word. Now, somebody lesser would have run scared and said, hey, you know, we're going to renege on this, and, you know. But he never did. He was a champion of that kind of freedom.
The one problem he had was he really would get very angry at the referees at the varsity games. And my mother would say, Walter, you are the superintendent and you must set a good example. And he would boo, and he would, you know, that was kind of funny. So we used to laugh about, you know, he never was, you know, vulgar at the games, but he certainly would get mad at the refereeing because he was a great fan of all polar activities.
By the end of the 1940s, the war was over. Life in the U.S. was returning to normal, and the mood of the country was upbeat. In 1948, North High became the first school in the state to offer driver's education.
Superintendent Walter Richardson, he had a real vision for this district and had a real vision for education. And he could look into the future and say, we better get going on this thing, because the state at that time had talked about driver education, and he jumped right on it, on the bandwagon. He got a hold of me and said, let's do it. We didn't have much after school. It was, during the school hours, during their study hall or study period, we pulled kids out and had driver education throughout the whole 6-7 hours of school time.
In 1949, North music director Palmer Rauch wrote a new school fight song.
The reason we changed it because the school song that we did have was somewhat like the Star Spangled Banner. It was either too high or too low for people, and so I wrote a song that would be simpler and easier to sing, and I presented it to the student body, and they all agreed. They liked it, and so as a result, we have our own school song instead of taking some song for like On Wisconsin, which so many schools use. I just sat down and it came to me in 15 minutes. I had it written, played on the piano. And the words that I wrote probably took me another 15 minutes. If you're inspired, you do things that you don't understand. So it wasn't something that, it just seemed that the words I chose fit the whole occasion.
The North High athletic fields became among the first in the area to be lighted in 1952, thanks to the Lions Club.
We laid the sod and got the lights and got electricians to donate time, and everyone donated. And it cost us $17,000. It was $17,000 in 1950-51. It was a lot of money. And they didn't have gambling at that time. We still don't have gambling, but we had to raise that kind of money selling light bulbs, brooms, and fruit cakes, or whatever it is. Now, that's a hell of a lot of fruit cakes.
There was a fellow by the name of Les Behringer that worked for North St. Paul Utilities. And he would climb up those towers and replace bulbs for us. And we gave him extra pay for climbing that height. I think it was like $10 an hour. I'm not sure about that, but it wasn't any more than that. But he would do that. And Les did it for several years until he wasn't able to do it any longer. And I was trying to find someone else to do it. I could not find anybody else to do it. So, being a former paratrooper, I thought, well, this height won't bother me any. So I got my good friend and teacher, Hal Norgard. He and I started maintaining those towers. We'd climb up and change the bulbs and so on. And I can recall the tower right over here that we were up there and I dropped the wrench. And I was going to climb down to pick up the wrench. And Jerry Hilliard, who was a teacher here in our shops, happened to drive up and I hollered, Jerry, can you throw that wrench up? I'll come halfway down and see if you can throw it up. He says, no, I'll bring it up to you. And now Jerry Hilliard, during World War II, was a fighter pilot. He got up about 3/4 of the way and he froze. We could hardly get him down. We had to help him down, one in back. I think I was in back and Norgard in front. We helped Jerry all the way down to the ground to get him down.
The North High student body came from North St. Paul and 8 other outlying school districts. Elementary students, however, still attended class in their own schools. In May of 1952, voters in all 9 of the districts were asked to approve a reorganization plan that would result in one school district. The idea was to offer students more for less money by reducing duplication. The vote failed because of opposition in 4 rural districts. However, reorganization was approved 5 months later, creating Independent School District 622. The post-World War II boom was being felt in the form of more students at North. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, Superintendent Richardson and the community had to deal with skyrocketing enrollment that caused nearly continuous space problems.
One of the things I remember in the early 50s, of course, there was always a new building either being renovated or built every summer, and I would climb around the building sites with him. He took that business very seriously.
And we were building schools as fast as we could build them. It was a very interesting time for me, I know that. It was exciting and new, and you could try different things, and nobody was going to criticize you, and it was just a good time, and people were school-minded. These baby boomers were having babies, and they wanted their kids to have good schools.
And I remember him interviewing people in our living room on the weekends if he was able to get a candidate who was just passing through town, perhaps visiting his or her family, because he would be very, very sometimes short of teachers until the summer.
A January 22, 1952 bond issue passed, allowing District 622 to build its first school away from the North High campus. Cowan Elementary School opened a mile away on February 1, 1953, freeing some much-needed space in the junior high, senior high building. The large student population swelled enrollments in all subject areas, including the award-winning music department.
The school got so large that I had to choose between band and vocal. Well, I enjoyed both equally, but I guess the reason I took band, I was raising a family, building a home, and if I took band, I'd have another 6 weeks of pay with a summer band. As a result, I took the band, and Carl Lipke came in and took the chorus, and with his expertise, it was a good change for the vocal area because they got such a fine band choral director.
Palmer and I shared the third floor room. The band was on one end of the room and the choir was on the other end of the room. We didn't meet at the same time, but we shared the same large room. Finally, in the year of '64, the choir room, as I have been in for the remainder of the year, we moved in there, and it was a great thrill. Walter Richardson came to me and indicated that I had about 50 minutes to design my choir room, and I had 1,600 square feet to deal with. And so within 1 hour, I had to design the choir room.
North Elementary School, now Richardson, opened to students in March 1955. That left only 8 classrooms of elementary students in the high school building. The former elementary classrooms were converted to typing, bookkeeping, shorthand, and biology classrooms. Enrollment in the district jumped from 880 in 1947 to more than 3,400 in 1955, the result of the baby boom and the popularity of suburban living. On October 18, 1955, North St. Paul voters were again asked to pay for more school facilities. The $1.5 million levy was used to complete elementary buildings and put up and equip another addition at North High. The $600,000 addition included home ec, shop, music and art classrooms, and a new gym. The East Wing addition was dedicated September 26, 1956. North High enrollment was growing by at least 200 students per year. Superintendent Walter Richardson warned that overcrowding was so critical that preparations were being made for the high school, junior high school to go to 2 shifts in 1958-59.
The teachers had to compact all their curriculum into 4 hours. I went to school from, I believe, 12 until 4, or maybe it was 12 until 5 for junior high, and then the high school was 7 until 11. And so it was, I don't even know if we had a lunchroom at those days because the lunchroom was the classroom, had to be classrooms.
Students at North Junior Senior High had to endure double shifts for the 58-59 and 59-60 school years. The start of the 1959-60 school year also brought with it a new code of better dress. Among the articles of clothing that were unacceptable for boys and girls to wear were blue jeans.
Well, then the summer before our junior year, they came out with colored jeans, and they were red and they were green and they were every color imaginable, and the rules said no blue jeans. And so, and they were more of a soft texture than previous rougher jeans. So many of us went out and spent our clothing allowance, which was probably about 20 bucks back then, and got these new colored jeans. And we showed up the first day and we were so proud, and the in-group had all of our colored jeans on. And over the announcements, they told us that no jeans, including colored jeans, were allowed. And we were sent home. Got home and told our parents, and they were a little upset that they hadn't been informed that the new thing wasn't going to be allowed, and one thing led to another, and there finally was a compromise that blue jeans were still out, no matter old or new color blue. Blue was out, but the colored jeans were in, and so we were allowed finally, after about a week and a half of wearing our stuff from the previous year, to wear our new clothes.
The North Code of Better Dress also required clothing be worn in a proper way, and it frowned upon long ducktail haircuts, sideburns, and other unorthodox hairstyles. The Code of Better Dress said nothing about behavior.
We had a shop teacher once accuse our class of stealing his grade book, and we hadn't. We had a talk, and we said we hadn't, and he selected one person and gave him detention until the grade book showed up. Well, 2 days later, he found it, and I guess he had just misplaced it. And so he told us that, okay, this time it's here, but if it ever happens again, you're all getting detention. So towards the end of that class period, a couple of us decided to make sure his grade book didn't disappear. So all the old wooden workbenches, so we opened his book halfway up and we took a 6-inch spike and we did nail it to the bench and then shut it. And then we kept asking about our grade for the next 10, 15 minutes, and finally he walked by and tried to sweep the book off the table and tell us our grades, and of course he stopped dead in his tracks and the whole place went up for grabs, and we got 2 weeks detention, but it was the best time we ever served. It was quality time.
With the opening of the new Maplewood Junior High in September 1960, North became solely a high school for the first time. This also ended the need for 2 shifts of classes every day. North High claimed its first state championship that same school year. The baseball team, led by Don Arlich, cruised to the state title by beating Minneapolis Washburn 2-0. North High was again bursting at its seams by the 1962-63 school year. With nearly 1,400 students enrolled, the building was as full as it was 4 years earlier when it operated on 2 shifts. The solution, as was the case 3 times before, an addition. North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale voters approved the $4.8 million bond referendum on November 27, 1962. Some of the money was used to build the new west wing of North. The frantic effort to keep adding to North High to stay ahead of the constant enrollment increases continued into the late 1960s. The old gym was converted into a 530-seat auditorium in 1967. Athletic facilities were also being improved. The North High hockey team moved its practices indoors with the completion of Polar Arena in 1969. School athletes helped in the construction.
Figured the sooner we get this thing going and done, you know, the more ice time we'd have inside, didn't have to play out in the cold anymore, and wouldn't have to shovel rinks and things like that. So we just came up and, you know, did what we could do. There was a time when the building was pretty much complete, and we helped spread the sand out over the pipes so that we could, you know, get it flooded for the first time.
By the end of the 60s, the optimism of the post-World War II boom had faded. In fact, in much of the country, including the North St. Paul area, that feeling had given way to cynicism and distrust of authority. A big factor in this was the Vietnam War. Once again, a war's repercussions were felt locally.
Well, one memory that I have from my first year of teaching is somewhere in the middle of the morning, my students en masse standing up and walking out of my class and other classes and going down to the gym and having a sit-in, staging a sit-in, and it had been organized by I don't know who to this day. I have some suspicions, but I won't. But it was just a general protest against the war. I think probably it was following along all the other protests that they had seen.
Robertson completed the school year and was drafted, as was art teacher Doug Niska. Bomb scares frequently interrupted class. In November 1969, it was more than a scare when a bomb rocked the lower level of North, causing some damage, but no injuries.
I was waiting for my friend Dave Connett. I kept on looking for him down the hallway here. We were gonna do a little skip that morning. But he still wasn't here, so the bell rang, and so I ducks inside here to use the facilities, and it wasn't long after that when the bomb blew. After it blew, it was behind the door here, and it blew it right through the steel jamb, put a big bow in it. Glass was still falling out of the windows up above here. Big cloud of dust. I come out into the hallway with holding my ears, and the teacher across the hall there grabbed me right away. I was the only one in the hall, so I was the obvious one.
1970 was also the year that a second high school opened in the North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale School District. But prior to the completion of Tartan High in Oakdale, North High was so crowded that once again, students had to attend school in 2 shifts. North students in the morning and soon-to-be Tartan students in the afternoon. Tartan High School opened its doors to nearly 1,200 8th through 11th grade students on January 11th, 1971. The class of '72 was the first to graduate from Tartan. Female athletes at North finally began to compete interscholastically in 1972 after years of intramural-like competition through the Girls Athletic Association.
We've just had some marvelous young female athletes come through our building and our district over the years. And we had some very energetic, enthusiastic young coaches who probably got a jump start and a leg up on many of the other suburbs. And we had conference championships early on in the girls' programs fairly consistently.
North's softball team captured the state championship in 1984. In 1973, the war protests had faded, and students found other ways to get attention.
The teachers were in the teachers' lounge eating. We heard a huge roar out in the cafeteria. We burst out the door and just caught the tail end of 3 streakers streaking the entire length of the cafeteria, bursting through the far door to the car driven by their 4th brother, waiting to bear them away to safety. The only problem was that one of the brother's hands went through the door, cut his arm, and he was traced to Ramsey Hospital that way.
I came into the room one day, and there was nobody there. And I thought, holy smokes, now how do you explain this to a principal? Hey, I lost 30-some kids. It just isn't supposed to happen. So I went down the hall, because they were always playing pranks, and I thought, well, they're sitting in somebody's room. Nobody had seen them. So I came back to the room here, and I was trying to decide what I should do. And this was again on 3rd floor. And I heard this noise. And I thought, wow. And it was from overhead. And I thought, what is this? And then the noise got louder and louder, and there was scratching and sort of screaming, get off of me, I gotta get off. Something crawled over me, I gotta get out of here. And behind the green doors, there was an opening to the whole attic thing, that vent, that whatever's up there. They had all climbed up there. So one by one they came down. They were dirty, they were sooty, their faces were streaked with sweat. They were freaked out because of the bats and the mice and whatever else. So the last one hopped down and I said, shall we get started?
The construction of Tartan marked the end of the baby boom expansion of District 622. Throughout the late 70s and into the 80s, enrollment sharply declined as the baby boomers graduated. The decline in students and the accompanied loss of funding forced district officials to begin the painful process of closing schools.
The impact wasn't just on North, it was on everybody, and what it did was it made staff real jittery. I think there were people who spent their whole lives worrying about whether they'd have a job or not. And I could understand that, especially the new folks who had come in. You know, it was a phenomenon we hadn't faced before. We were always growing. And so then all of a sudden you closed school and you had tenured people, and what did you do with those, and who did they bump out? And I think that was a real hard time for everybody.
The beginning of the end of the original North High School came in 1993. In a scenario very similar to what led to the construction of the original North, a state building inspector declared the building inadequate. On May 11th, the school board officially sealed the fate of the 77-year-old building by approving a strategic plan to build a new high school. Voters turned down the plan in June 1993. Administrators went back to the drawing board and came up with a plan to build the new high school on a wooded site in Maplewood. The choice raised the ire of North St. Paul voters, who led the opposition to the May 1994 bond referendum to pay for the new building.
I would never, never, never agree to a high school that isn't built in this location. So then we fought it for a couple of referendums until they came back here and it passed overwhelmingly. As we went through the referendums, some people, I felt that I wasn't for education and new schools, but they missed the point. I was all for a new high school. I didn't care how much it cost, but I wanted it right here where it has been for almost 100 years.
A blue ribbon task force was quickly formed to find a compromise plan for the high school. This time, the task force picked a 17-acre plot of land just to the west of the current high school. In August of 1994, the proposal passed, but at a cost greater than the $33 million price tag. 37 homes and several businesses were taken down to make way for the new school building. Ground was broken for the new North High on September 11, 1995.
Originally, I was absolutely overjoyed when the referendum passed, and as I began to become a little more aware of what my role was going to be in this process, it admittedly was a little intimidating to think about everything that needed to be done to design the project, to manage the old school, to make sure that our students were still getting an education at the old school as we continued to plan for what was going to happen at New North.
The most dramatic change was dropping the 6-period day in favor of the block schedule, consisting of 4 85-minute classes. The result has been better attendance, behavior, and grades. A new student incentive program called North Star was started in 1995-96. It rewards students for improving their grades, staying on the honor roll, good attendance, and community involvement. The DECA program continued to demonstrate North's academic excellence with more national and state awards than any other school in the country. On September 2, 1997, the new North opened to students for the first time. Mixed in with the new are many of the North High traditions generations have come to revere.
The school colors came over, the name of North High School came. The school song, some of the logos that we had in the entrances certainly replicated what was in the 1916 edition. Certainly just bringing over some of the traditions and values that North High School has stood for all of these years, and representing the community also was part of what we did in coming to New North.
A little bit of that will be left behind, you know, the stories obviously that go with the North. But I know for me, the people have meant more than anything, and not just my student friends, but the faculty and the staff and the administration. They've given me so much support over the years that I know that they'll take that with them to the New North as well.
Old North continues to stand tall and proud. The closing and demolition of North is the end of an era. But even after the building is long gone, reminders of all who have passed through its doors, hallways, and classrooms will remain. In photographs, memorabilia, and most of all, in the hearts and minds of those who have made North what it is. Just as it was when the old building opened in 1916, the opening of the new North is the latest chapter in North High School history. Now memories are being forged in a beautiful, technologically advanced building. And as time passes, This building will contribute its own unique legends and memories while serving as the center of the community for years to come.
If I had to write an obituary for the Old North High, I would just simply say that it just kind of moved a little bit to the west and reincarnated. Nothing has changed in terms of people's feeling about Polar Pride, about being an athlete or a student here.
I don't think North High is dying. I think it's got a beautiful new offspring, the new school.
When you went someplace and you wore your letterman's jacket, you were proud that you were from North St. Paul. I'm still proud that I'm from North St. Paul. And it's a wonderful uniqueness that seems to be lost today as we have open schools and you can come from other areas and transfer in and transfer out.
The Old North has just got something about it. It's got a lot of character to it, and it's something that the new school's not going to have. So I guess I feel kind of lucky to be able to say that I was the last graduating class from the old school.
A lot of nice feelings about it, a lot of good memories. What was Bob Hope's theme song? Thanks for the memories. And I guess that would be my theme song too.
That's not where the heritage comes from, not from the building, it's from the people that you remember, the teachers that you had and the people you played with. I don't think I look at that building that's not going to take any memories away from me.
Old soldiers don't die, they just fade away. Well, I think that's the same thing with old schools. They don't die, it lives in people's memories, but it just kind of fades away and new memories will be established. Old North will never disappear.